Okay.
I just loved I was
We're
drinking my
live, by the
coffee
way.
while reading okay. I was drinking my coffee while reading press releases
Yeah.
and hit that line and there was almost coffee everywhere. I did startle the dogs.
November 15th is when James Webb launches, not next year. November 15th. Everything's fine. It's going to launch.
So, do you think Branson or Bezos will make it to space first?
Bezos, even though Branson says he's going to fly sooner, he's going to fly on the 11th. Bezos is going to fly on the 15th. But I bet you there's going to be some issue with Spaceship Two. While I don't think there's going to be any delay on Blue Origin.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my feeling. You?
Um, I wouldn't be surprised if they ended up going up within 48 hours of each other.
Yeah.
And I don't know the order.
Well,
What
right
amuses
now
me,
Branson's scheduled first.
yeah. So what amuses me is all the folks who are just like, but hey, there's no Elon Musk planning. He's waiting. And it's just sort of like, so I don't think he's actually waiting because like he has a plan.
Oh yeah.
His plan is to go to
Yeah,
Mars.
or at least the moon.
Yeah.
And while Bezos and Branson are getting into this billionaire spat, the 6-week-old super heavy booster is rolling out of the
I
construction
know.
facility and off to the launch pad.
Yeah.
Like that thing is the biggest booster rocket that's ever been built, and my guess is it's going to work the first time because it's
Yeah.
simpler than Starship.
And looking at it, it was just sort of like, huh, he could hit his July deadline for suborbital. Um,
Or yeah,
yeah.
well, no, did he say orbital sometime in August maybe?
He said either orbital or suborbital
Right.
for July.
Yeah.
I don't,
Okay.
my
Yeah,
God, just
yeah. I
cracked my
think
turtle.
hurtling that thing into space, I don't think is the problem. Getting it back safely from space,
Yeah.
that is the challenge. Yeah.
Yeah. It is. It is amazing how big that thing is. And what really got me was they have this ginormous rocket cylinder. It doesn't have the top parts on yet. Cylinder. So just
Yeah.
ginormous cylinder on a base that is round and slightly bigger than the rocket cylinder. And they moved the entire thing yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's no giant crawler with big old tracks.
Yeah.
There's what looks like a dolly, but with a giant with a giant rocket on it.
So I think Jeff Bezos has inoculated himself against any criticism and anyone wishing him any kind of harm on his flight
Yeah,
later
with
on.
Wally.
He's taking Wally Funk, who is
Yeah.
one of the Mercury 13, one of the most renowned aviators, regardless of gender, in the United States,
Yes.
who was training to be an astronaut and got completely screwed over. She gets one of the seats on the flight.
Yeah.
That's so
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah. Like how can you have a problem with that? All right. So I should just mention sort of what, like, we talked about this on the weekly Space Hangout, but maybe you weren't there for it. So last Friday I was talking about the prediction that we were going to be going through this horrible heat wave, and we
Yeah.
did, and it was the worst. We hit here just shy of 40 degrees Celsius in where I live.
That's in the hundreds.
Yeah, and for us a hot summer day is 30 Celsius. So that was 10 degrees Celsius than what we normally expect. Like normally this time of the year we're in the 25s or so. Like we're having like a really hot day, it's in the upper 20s. So
Yeah.
it was 13 to 15 degrees warmer than normal. And it was incomprehensible. Like I've never felt heat like that. And I've been in Las Vegas in the summertime. Like I've been in Las Vegas in August and it was hotter.
It's dry in Vegas.
Yeah. So maybe, we were at like 60% humidity here. So
Yeah.
it was a little,
Evaporative cooling really matters.
yeah. But we had one place called Lytton, which hit just shy of 50 degrees, which was hotter than Vegas has ever experienced. They're at like 45 or 46. It was like Death Valley temperature in Lytton. And that was on Tuesday. Wednesday, wildfires destroyed the town. So can we say that that was the hottest temperature, that the town of Lytton experienced the hottest temperatures in the history of Canada when the town has now been wiped off the map? Yeah. Anyway, it was awful. And now, I don't know if you've seen the new hurricane forming in the Atlantic is 6 weeks early. The first hurricane is forming up 6 weeks earlier than normal. And
it's already the third named storm, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And this is our new normal.
This is our new normal, yeah.
And there's satellite images of, like, British Columbia is on fire.
Yeah.
It is just on fire.
There was like 10 fires a week ago, and now there's 150.
And what's happening from the satellite images is the cloud is pooling up, as smoke clouds do, flattening out, generating with all of the static in the clouds from all of the ash and debris, amazing lightning. The lightning is generating new fires, and it's just building and building. If you can find one of the videos of the fire clouds over British Columbia, it's dramatic and horrifying.
So hold on here. Fernando Salazar is saying, I grew up in Rio de Janeiro. 40 Celsius is late spring. Actually, according to Google, the hottest temperature ever experienced in Rio de Janeiro is 40 degrees Celsius. So that is
Third Rock is saying it hit 50 Celsius, 120 Fahrenheit in Seattle.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like I know Portland, downtown Portland was Death Valley temperatures. So, and then what you get is this, we're getting your like Midwest now that with all of this heat in the air getting away, you're getting all of this moisture showing up, and you're getting all lightning storms across the province, which is super rare. We never get lightning storms, and now they're all over the place. So anyway, it is, man, it's crazy. It was crazy. And you know, and nobody has air conditioner here, like nobody. Yeah. So people just like they had like civic centers opened up that you could go in and go get air conditioning. There was places where people were just going and just hanging out to cool down and wait for night because it was so hot. It was
I remember growing up, we didn't have air conditioning until I think I was in high school. We got a couple of window units at that point. And on really hot days, we'd like just go hang out at the shopping mall or go watch movies because movie admission was a whole lot cheaper than an air conditioner.
Yeah.
And with the ongoing pandemic, cooling centers just aren't that safe. And we're really facing one of those triple storms that feels like we're living in a dystopian book written by Paolo Bacigalupi.
Yeah. So anyway, it was an experience. I'm glad it's over. Apparently this won't happen again for another 1,000 years. So here's hoping. All right. Well, I think we covered all of the cool space news as well as the crazy temperature news. Let's get on with doing the show.
Okay. So are you ready to press record?
No. Wait.
Oh, I don't have names up for later. While you're doing that, I'm going to get names.
In the future.
Yeah.
Remind me. Actually, we should do this separately while it's in my brain. Let's do the hiatus message now. Mm-hmm. And just remember to upload that. And then hopefully Richard will realize to put the episode in the hiatus message. Okay. So you're ready to record?
Yep, we're going to put it all in one file?
No, let's do it as two separate files.
Okay, let me start a new file.
So this is the hiatus one.
Yep.
Ready?
Yep.
Okay. Hey everyone. So if you're listening to this message, that means that you are now aware that Astronomy Cast is going on its hiatus, annual summer hiatus. So we're going to be off for the next 2 months. When are we back, Pamela?
We are going to be back the first weekend of September. So it's more like 2.5 months. But after 15 years, I think we have earned our ability to take some time off now and then.
Well, we do this every summer, and it's a great way to kind of rejuvenate our brains, to focus our energy on the parts of our businesses which we have been putting off, and a way to leave our houses for longer than about 2 days, because we always require some kind of high-speed internet connection. So it's good for everyone. But this doesn't mean that we're not going to be doing anything over the summer. What are you up to over the course of this summer?
We are going to be working on getting citizen science going back at CosmoQuest. We have the CosmoQuest-a-con event July 16 through 18. And I think I'm actually going to consider like going camping or something.
I highly
recommend
it. Yeah, I will be camping as well. I will be doing a lot of gardening, but of course I will still be running Universe Today. We're going to be continuing to write all kinds of cool stories about what's happening across the universe. I'll still be writing my weekly email newsletter. So if you want to subscribe to that, go to universetoday.com/newsletter. And thinking deeply about what stories and ideas that we want to cover in the new season.
And if you are feeling hungry for audio information to put into your ears, the Daily Space will be continuing on. We won't necessarily be doing as many episodes over the summer, but we'll still be here and bringing you highlights of the news.
All right. Well, thanks, Pamela. And thanks to everyone who subscribes to this on a regular basis. I promise 2 months will zip by very quickly, and we'll see you in early September. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye. And now they saved.
And now they saved that.
Even into the correct folder.
Whoa.
All right.
Okay, close
So
that.
seriously, folks, if you have not yet gotten your tickets for CosmoQuest-a-con, we have over 40 guests, amazing content, and you're going to get to see me and many of the other humans dressed in our best 80s cosplay. I'm going to let my hair do what it desires to do most and be as big as possible.
That's awesome.
There might be a sequin dress and leather jacket involved. Yeah, show up. We're going to have a great time. The bulk of the content will be free on twitch.tv/CosmoQuestX, but we have demos, a vendor room, a second stage, a backstage lounge, only for ticket holders. Go on over to cosmoquest.org, click on the Learn More link for CosmoQuest-a-con, and, well, you know what to do. Get tickets.
Right on. Okay, I'm ready to start recording again.
Okay, my water pump is pumping. One moment.
So I changed the title. I'm calling it the SETI Renaissance.
All right.
Okay. Because that's the
Come on,
theme,
water
I think.
Apparently, the water pump is at a frequency my mic is super sensitive
I
to.
totally hear it. Yep. I hear it clicking and tapping. Tick, 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 tick.
Sounds like someone must be filling a water dish. Dogs. There. Okay.
Oh,
I'm
the
ready.
dogs can fill. Do you have one of those like little hose ones that they refill themselves?
No, but
Oh, okay.
but I can tell from the duration and the time of day. It wasn't a shower. It was too long for a toilet. Therefore,
Someone was refilling a water dish. Got it.
yes.
Okay, are you ready?
Yep. Press
Okay.
and record.
I've also pressed record. Here we go. Astronomy Cast, episode 612, the SETI Renaissance. Welcome to Astronomy Cast, our weekly facts-based journey through the cosmos, where we help you understand not only what we know, but how we know what we know. I'm Fraser, Cain, publisher of Universe Today. With me, as always, is Dr. Pamela Gay, a senior scientist for the Planetary Science Institute and the director of CosmoQuest. Hey, Pamela, how you doing?
I am doing well. How are you doing?
Good, although I'm sure you're all aware, I just went through the craziest heat wave Canada has ever seen. We hit just shy of 40 degrees Celsius in my hometown, which is just not right. Nobody has air
No.
conditioning. It was madness, and we have wildfires everywhere. So hopefully, I'm still here when we return in the fall. And speaking of returning in the fall, it's our time. We regret to inform you that we are now, this is the last episode before we do our summer hiatus.
This was our 15th season. And here in the States, that means our show gets to learn how to drive next year.
Right, exactly. So we'll be back in 2 months. We return with new shows in September, and this just gives us a chance to spend a couple of months not having to stay within arm's reach of high-speed internet all the time. So we can do things like go places and do things. So, all right, Pamela, how should people keep sort of track of you over the course of the summer if they want to still stay in touch?
I think the best thing to do, as always, is to follow me on Twitter at Starstrider, spelled with a Y. And like Universe Today, CosmoQuest has a newsletter where we're going to be putting out all the information of what we're up to all summer long. Check that out, cosmoquest.org.
And I'm still going to be working as well. I never stop. But go to universetoday.com/newsletter, and you can get my weekly email newsletter, which Pamela just mentioned. All right. Last week, we talked about the various ways that astronomers could detect the presence of intelligent civilizations by observing technosignatures. This week, we'll give you an update on the state of the search for extraterrestrials. This field has gone from a collection of pariahs to a completely legitimate field of research. What's changed? And we will get into that in a moment, but first, it's time for a break. And we're back.
I'm sorry. I just read a comment. You're going to have to cut this out.
The one from Horizon Brave?
No. So I'm looking at the Twitch comments, and Time Lord just wrote, "Suddenly feels old. The Astronomy Cast would have a learner's permit now." Yeah. What did you see?
Oh, Horizon Brave said that it means the show gets really angsty and edgy and rebellious.
Yes.
Possibly true. Yeah. That's awesome. All right.
Let's try
settle down. And we're back. All right. So yeah, I mean, last week we just sort of talked about the techniques, but I think it's really important to talk about those techniques in the larger arc of SETI history, and the fact that for the longest time, if you even proposed doing any kind of SETI research, you were a bad person and should feel bad. What happened?
You were a pariah.
Yeah.
It like bad person is the wrong word, because there's a ton of bad people in science. Just read the news. No, you were the crazy person that like no one wanted to talk to in case your crazy cooties somehow. Right. Yeah.
So I mean, let's go back a bit and just sort of talk about the development of the field and how it made that switch over. So go ahead.
Well, it largely started in the 70s and 80s with people starting to think about, well, just how far could radio signals go? You had Frank Drake with his Drake equation, which we did an entire episode on years and years ago. And people started thinking about, so how do we estimate how common life is? And it even became a homework assignment that you regularly gave undergraduates to figure out. But at that point, it was simply a interesting side note, a asterisk in the margins of, well, radio is leaking. Maybe we could hear someone else.
Right.
But then you had folks like Jill Tarter reaching out and saying, we can actively listen for this. We had folks like Carl Sagan saying, we need to plan into our missions that our missions will someday, when they leave the solar system, get scooped up by some alien civilization. And what do we want to say?
Right.
And while both of them dealt with a fair amount of scorn throughout their careers for various reasons, Their determination to keep doing what they felt called to do made space for other people to come up and say, hey, I want to study astrobiology. I want to figure out what life as we do not know it looks like. Hey, I want to figure out other ways of communicating. And today we have major powerhouses like the SETI Institute here in the United States. We have small nonprofits like the METI Association. We even have white papers by silly ideas like WETI that are designed to get people thinking about what might be out there.
But you had this sort of nascent community of people, as you said. Jill Tarter and Carl Sagan were definitely spearheading this idea of let's search and they brought those ideas forth and were actively using radio telescope time. And then the science community took this turn and said, nope, that's enough of that. We will not be using our precious radio telescopes to search for bug-eyed monsters.
And it was worse than that. In 1975, the Viking landers on Mars did experiments to try and find out if life as we know it could exist on the Martian soil, in the Martian soil. And the results were inconclusive. And the
worst kind of conclusive.
Right. And so there have been people calling to replicate those experiments ever since. And everyone's been like, nope, don't want to know. And so instead of saying until recently that we're going to look for life, people instead said, we're going to look for signs of water. Just that's as far as we're willing to go, is we will look for water.
Sure, physically. But
yeah.
But how did that play against the radio observatories?
Well, there was overall, and it actually came from Congress, that there would be no funding dedicated to looking for aliens.
God, that's madness. Like the most important scientific question that, or at least one, it's on the short list, that we could possibly ask. And we now, a modern society, has the tools to answer this question, and Congress itself said no.
And I think part of it comes down to there's always going to be that one Congress critter who's looking for the thing that they can point to and say, this is a waste of funding. And saying that you're looking for aliens is certainly the kind of thing that you can get your constituents all up in arms over. And so it can be a fun game, and no one wants to get involved in that particular game because there's no winners except for the person making fun of it.
Yeah.
So you have that. You also have the problem that here in the United States, there has been so much popularity around the ideas of aliens and alien abductions and alien probes. And while it makes for great TV, I grew up on the X-Files. It also leads to people thinking that is fiction. We do not actually invest our US science dollars in doing things from the X-Files.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. And so you talk about this idea of, so there was this sort of dark age through the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s that anyone who wanted to do any kind of research into SETI had to get creative.
Yes. Or use donations.
Right.
And so you had both things happening. You had folks doing radio observations that had dual purposes, where you are observing for your science, but part of observing for your science, that data can also be used to just check, hey, does this particular star happen to also have other radio signals that don't have an explanation that can come from nature? And nothing has been found, but people kept looking. And I think the real change came when, during the same dark ages of the radio SETI, we also had a dark ages for water in the solar system. You and I grew up learning that there really isn't water out there. Moon, dry. Mars, dry. Everything dry.
Asteroids, dry. Yeah. Got to go to Jupiter.
We were so wrong.
Yeah.
We were raised wrong. We were raised wrong, Fraser.
Right. So you've got this dark age, and you talked about this idea of that you've got donations, you've got things like the SETI Institute, which feels like it's this fairly well-known research institution funded by universities and government and NASA and blah, 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 but it's not. It's literally donations from people like you and me and
to be fair,
larger funds, sure.
So the SETI Institute is a research institute, a lot like the Planetary Science Institute where I work. They're bigger.
Yes.
And they do have a lot of researchers that are doing NASA-funded and National Science Foundation-funded science. They run programs for the Sophia Airborne Observatory. They were part of the Kepler mission. But in addition to the more traditional science, searching for exoplanets, trying to figure out what is natural and unnatural chemistry in planetary atmospheres, in addition to all of that work, they also have their Allen Telescope Array, which is privately funded, which is looking for the radio signals of alien civilizations and lives and dies by donations and sponsorships, private funding.
All right, we're going to talk a little bit more about this shift from the Dark Ages to the Renaissance that I mentioned, but it's time for another break. And we're back. So through the 80s, through the 90s, early 2000s, the only people doing any kind of SETI research pretty much at all was through donations, privately funded, privately built telescopes. You could not ask for a penny from NASA, from the government. And a similar situation was happening really across the world in countries. So how did things shift suddenly that now it's not a bad thing to be an astrobiologist? It's not a bad thing to search for some kind of evidence of smart aliens.
The difference came in the kinds of science that we can do and in the fact that we finally found planets, fairly normal planets, orbiting other stars. Up until 1995, we didn't know if there would be planets everywhere, planets nowhere. And in 1995, we finally started to find planets that are big old round things, not the crazy little things found around pulsars, big old round things, hot Jupiters, snuggled up next to giant and sun-like stars. And this difference in going from not knowing if there are planets to knowing there are probably more planets than stars in our galaxy meant that it really made sense to start saying what kind of chemistry, what kind of biology can exist out there. And NASA did their first call for proposals for the astrobiology institutes in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
And out of those astrobiology institutes, you saw multidisciplinary collaborations arising for the first time under public dollars that were geared at saying, okay, Titan has methane, discuss.
Right.
Figuring out what's possible.
Yeah. Mars has evidence of water, discuss. Europa has oceans of ice, and also all of the amazing places that they were finding life here on Earth. I mean, our modern idea of life can exist wherever there's liquid water. A lot of those discoveries have been made in the last couple of decades, with life found in nuclear reactors under Antarctic ice, high up in the atmosphere, in incredible salinity, temperatures, down at the bottom of the ocean with black smokers, completely separate ecosystems. Like life really found ways, and we've only finally discovered how all the shenanigans that life had gotten up to while we weren't looking very well.
Pretty much, you can't find an ecosystem that doesn't have something living in it.
Yeah.
And while you might be able to grab up a couple tablespoons of non-occupied soil, rocks, whatever, go much further than that, and there's going to be something alive there.
Yeah. So then, as you said, sort of in the early 2000s, NASA started to make the call, and the budgetary floodgates, I wouldn't call that, started to trickle some funding into a fairly narrow idea of of astrobiology. Like, let's look, we found bacteria living in hot thermal vents here on Earth. Let's consider what it's going to be like to find bacteria in hot thermal vents on Europa. But that's not smart aliens. So what finally started to shift people's attitudes about starting to search for intelligent signals of aliens? Have we crossed into the Renaissance yet?
I think we're in the process due to foundations. There's the Breakthrough Institute, for instance, that is funding exploration to go to Venus and figure out what's up in that atmosphere. And by having these foundations with enough money to actually fund new research initiatives, it opens up the possibility of new things that might not be competitive when you have to ask, is this in the best interests of the nation, which is one of the questions in NASA and NSF funding. And so now you have private foundations that are saying this is worth exploring. We now know there are thousands of planets that we can point to.
Yeah.
Let's look, let's dream. And then all the discoveries of water that have been going on since Messenger got to Mercury, since L-Cross impacted into the moon, since we first saw the dark lineations on Mars. Every world, it seems, that we now send a spacecraft to, we're finding volatiles. Bennu used its volatiles to throw rocks at Osiris Rex.
Yeah. So then what is the current state? Now, we talked about SETI, METI, WETI. What is the current state now of the search for extraterrestrials across the globe, of intelligent civilizations?
So the SETI Institute is the one that is most classic, and there are models like it in other nations. And this is the idea of bringing together people who are understanding star formation, that are understanding planet formation, and are then looking at the chemistry involved to say, what are the necessary ingredients to get to organic molecules and potentially to life? And if you can get potentially to life, what are the organic molecules that you'll only see if there is life? So that's the traditional approach that NASA and NSF are throwing money at. You also have the traditional approach of looking in radio signals for looking for technosignatures. Now, where it starts to get different is where you look at the METI Institute. This is Messaging Extraterrestrial Intelligence. And this is where, instead of looking for the leaked signals, instead of looking for the atmospheric signals, they are actually working to put together a network of observers and an observatory in Panama that work together to look for directed laser beam communications that are pointed at us by someone who knows we're here or thinks we're here.
Right. Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to talk about that a little bit more, but it's time for another break. And we're back. So you talked about one observatory in South America that will be specifically looking for lasers being shined at humanity. There's the Allen Array. Can any radio telescope do this job? Do you think we really are going to be needing more custom-built observatories to be able to do this job?
The issue becomes one of sensitivity. If you want to really detect leaked signals, you're going to need something like the square kilometer array. If you want to look for directed signals, then you're going to need a network of smaller facilities that are just monitoring a whole lot of the sky. And this is the direction that METI is trying to go into, of looking for directed signals using an array of, they're starting with optical telescopes looking for laser signals. But you should be, if radio astronomy ever gets truly popular, able to do the same thing with amateur radio dishes.
Right.
So it's just a matter of saying we believe aliens would try and communicate with us. And the other side of WETI is they're trying to figure out how to communicate back. What are the ways that you would want to encode a message? What are the ways you would want to deliver the message? And they've drawn the ire of folks like before he passed, Stephen Hawking, who was
Yeah.
like, that's a bad idea, folks. Don't let them know we're here.
Right.
Stop.
Yeah. There's a couple of interesting things that have happened. So just a couple of years ago, NASA hosted a technosignatures workshop where you had some of the leading minds in this field around the world all coming together and discussing ways that you could scan for evidence of technosignatures. And we covered a lot of those ideas last episode, but the team that thought these up had really only came together in the last couple of years, and they're meeting now on a fairly regular basis. So you've got these really clever ideas that are out of the box, but you've also got things like even the precursor to the square kilometer array, the Murchison array in Australia, was recently used to search for signals coming from civilizations. So the researchers are starting to get time on these big radio observatories to do these kinds of searches. Same thing with the Chinese FAST telescope. So now you can ask for telescope time. You can get funding. It's a different world now.
And so this gets us to that final thing that we haven't really talked too much about, which is WETI, waiting for extraterrestrial intelligence.
Sure.
And this has largely been a joke, but while it's a joke with an excellent Twitter account, it has written some really interesting working group papers that point out that if aliens really are visiting us, so we can sit around, wait for them to appear and say, hi, we're here, so really don't need to do much for WETI. If they actually are appearing, we'd be able to find out the same way we track illness and earthquakes just by looking at people's Google searches. And so they've talked about setting up Google alerts and have even run some historical ones to see how over time certain keywords search frequency has changed. And of course, this pops up all sorts of different movies premiering.
Right.
But it also pops up weird events. There was a nominal UFO spotting over Mexico City a number of years ago that turned out, I believe, to be a balloon. And all of the searches of people looking up alien and UFO caused a dual spike in the two terms simultaneously. So there actually isn't overwhelming evidence that we've actually been visited. So clearly we need to keep waiting, but it's interesting that one of the ways we might be able to separate real from fake is just by looking to see how many people go Googling all at once.
Yeah, that's interesting. They use a similar technology for seeing if there are illnesses, like if there's colds or flus or COVID sweeping through various populations. You can just see by what people are Googling to see what's out there. So with this, I guess, newly found, rediscovered excitement about the search for extraterrestrials, the scanning for technosignatures, do you think this increases our chances of finding out if we're alone?
I don't know.
Finding out if we're alone, finding if we're not alone? Yeah.
So this is a complicated question because how are we going to find it first? We don't know the amount of time that a civilization is easily spotted. And not knowing that duration means we can't tell how easy or hard it's going to be able to spot civilizations. If civilizations are loud and polluting and obnoxious for centuries versus a century or two, or even if they're loud and obnoxious for millennia, we have an easier chance of spotting them. What I'm really hoping is that as we start getting more and more survey telescopes going, that these recurring survey systems like the Vera Rubin Large Synoptic Survey Telescope, like the Square Kilometer Array, as these systems go out and peer at the sky, they will, in the course of their everyday science, identify things that warrant follow-up.
Sort of like
I want it to be that comment.
Yeah, when you think about, say, fast radio bursts, that
Yes.
you've got this weird thing that's showing up in the data that's worthy of follow-up observations. And you could definitely see something like Vera Rubin, which is going to be scanning the entire sky. Any star which is extra bright briefly for some reason would be an interesting follow-up, especially if it didn't follow any models of variable stars that we're aware of today. So place your bets. Which of all of the methods will give us some kind of an answer to the question, are we alone in the universe?
So I don't know if he remembers this, but I actually placed a bet with Seth Shostak that within our lifetime, life would be found first via its intelligent life would be identified first via its atmospheric impact. That some scope out there, and I'd hoped it would be TESS, would find the worlds that the follow-up scope that was supposed to be JWST would slew over to and go, okay, looking at the atmosphere. Ooh, there is pollution.
Yeah.
There'd be life. JWST really needs to just get off the ground.
It'll fly. So that's your guess. Your guess is that we will discover in our lifetimes evidence of a polluted atmosphere somewhere out there in the nearby, relatively nearby Milky Way, and that will tell us that we're not alone in the universe.
Yeah,
that's
my hope.
Did Seth have a counter bet?
He's still looking at the radio waves, but that's kind of his thing.
Right. So he thinks that we will detect a signal from a civilization.
Yes.
All right. I think that we will detect an artifact in the solar system before we do either of those things. So I think we will find an alien probe on the moon, a factory floating in the asteroid belt, something like that. That's my guess.
I love how science fiction impacts all of our thinking.
It's true. Yeah. Yeah. It's fairly driven entirely by science fiction. It's hard to know where we begin or where the Star Trek ends and we begin.
Yeah.
Pamela, super fascinating. I hope you win your bet. I hope we all win the bet.
I actually am now hoping that you're the one that's right, because that would be cool.
That would be very cool. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, Pamela.
Okay. Thank you. And as always, we are here thanks to the generous contributions of people like you. We do everything that we can because of you. And during the summer, we're going to be doing our best to make you proud by updating our website and just getting everything put together better than ever. This week, I would like to thank Kimberly Reich, Niall Bruce, Corinne Demtruk, Kensea Penflinko, Claudia Mastriani, Daniel Lossley, Matthew Horstman, Abraham Cottrell, Alex Rain, Jeff Wilson, Joe Wilkinson, David Gates, J. Alexanderson, Justin Proctor, Sabri Lark, Aaron Zegrev, Jeremy Kerwin, Paul Hayden, Tim Garish, Ronald McCoy, John, Brent Kernop, Arthur Latz Hall, Roland Vormerdam, Michelle Cullen, Omar Del Riviero, Aaron Tannenbaum, Dustin Ralph, Brian Kilby, Mark Stephen Rasnack, Marco Arasi, Leah Harbin, Mark Phillips, Kathleen Matson, Bob the Cat, the Lonely Sand Person, Janelle Duncan, Benjamin Davies, Chris Wheelwright, Ruben McCarthy, and Jeff McDonald's. Thank you all so very much.
Thank you, everyone, and we will see you in September. And then they saved.
And then they saved. It's true.
Episode 612. Okay. And saved. And I'm going to upload. And don't forget to upload the other thing too.
Yeah.
Okay.
So someone with the username MurderCom asks, do y'all think Elon Musk Mars plan is a little more evil than the facade he portrays? I heard he will be charging for air. So this is the old company store idea.
Right.
And I mean, he's a genius, but I don't think he's an evil genius.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think he's a stoner genius that sometimes needs his Twitter account taken away.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's good. Yeah. It's so weird to me that like the only people who are going to go to Mars are the people who enjoy suffering. who enjoy a challenge.
Yes.
And it is not going to be this like totalitarian city run by a megalomaniac. I think you're exactly. It's this stoner. Like it's like he's going to provide the transportation, and your job is to survive. If you're willing to pay for the flight, like if you get dropped off on Mars, you should have brought everything you need to survive. He's just providing the wheels, space wheels. Not
and I can imagine that there are basically homesteading things where you're given a certain amount of starter stuff and told go forth, be productive, and if you fail you end up, well, it's the Babylon 5 ground levels problem of you do end up with people just barely making it. We see examples in The Expanse as well.
Yeah.
I think that because
and it is a return ticket.
Yeah. I think that because of the way humanity works, that a lot of people will go thinking it's not that hard and they can accomplish the Martian dream, and then will realize it's beyond their actual abilities.
Yeah.
But I don't think that it's going to be Atlas Shrugged.
Right.
I think it's going to be Babylon 5.
Yeah, it's like we've seen the experiment of humanity time and time and time again. We've seen how this plays out. And the only difference this time around is like when people were going to, like, say when the people of the South Pacific were traveling from island to island, colonizing farther and farther afield, all they needed was a canoe laden with supplies, and they were able to make a fresh start on a new island.
Yeah.
But in the case of Mars, the only way you survive is with constant replenishment from Earth for 100 years. Like it's just going to be starship after starship after starship going. And the only way that place will even eventually become self-sufficient is through the intentional support of the entire planet Earth.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is more Antarctica than tropical island. And even if you think back to the folks that were trying to settle like North America, they had to rely on the folks that had already gotten there. Is my video frozen?
Yeah,
to
totally
you?
Frozen.
Okay. Let me flash that on and off.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're exactly right. Like Mars is Antarctica, but worse, way worse, so much worse. And so like go ahead, like land in Antarctica, and just, like no one's going to stop you. If you could make it to Antarctica and you want to try living off the land, you could do it. You would be allowed to, but you couldn't do it.
Right.
And people have tried because it's really
there.
tough. It's really tough to survive there. And so,
and there just aren't enough easily accessible penguins to eat.
Yeah. And Antarctica is a paradise compared to Mars.
Yes.
Right. So I just think that what people are imagining, oh yeah, all the rich billionaires are just going to hop in their spaceship and they're going to fly to Mars. They're going to be living large on Mars. No, they're not. It's not gonna be like
there
that.
was, I listened to a short story available for free on Audible that was really designed for teenagers, but I was gardening and it came up. And it was all about how extremely rich families that wanted to live a libertarian life were going to Mars. And there was this amazing video game that people could play as they practiced to go. And it turned out that the video game was actually part of how the people of Mars figured out who to put into what role or not. It was an interesting concept.
Yeah.
But it was literally a wealthy people were going to start over and had to give up every privilege they ever had.
Yeah. Like attempts at colonizing Antarctica tells you everything you need to know about what it's going to be like to colonize Mars.
Yeah.
Just look at the history of people trying to live on Antarctica, and that will tell you, everything you need to know. Great question, though. John S. asks, any news on poor Hubble? Do you think this might be the end?
So I'm seeing folks that probably have inside information saying they're trying, don't give up yet. They're trying, don't give up yet. We are definitely in the winter is coming days of Opportunity rover.
Yeah, the main computer they were using failed. The backup computer failed. Now they're trying to go to a backup of the backup. They have many redundant systems they can use to try, and they're still able to communicate with the telescope, so that's good. And they can just try to run all kinds of stuff. And we've seen them pull off incredible feats of pulling fat out of fire in the past. So it feels like it's a possibility. Yeah,
it's lived so much beyond its expectations. And like I tweeted this the other day. When I was 31, I started throwing errors and wanting to shut down too. Right. And what technology
31.
Yeah,
that's crazy. But I would say this is the biggest existential crisis to Hubble since the gyro failures back. You're frozen again?
I am. I am. That was a weird position to be frozen in. Okay, let's mute the camera again, or blink the camera again, I guess. I don't know what's going on. All right, we're back again.
All right. So Horizon Brave asked, let's see, I'm trying to get his quote so that I can, where's the quote here? The gist was, hey, Fraser, I thought you'd want no funding for SETI, considering the fact that you think we're alone in the universe.
You don't think we're alone in the universe?
Oh, I do.
You do?
Yeah, you didn't know that?
Completely alone?
Completely alone. Maybe not in the universe, but definitely in definitely in the observable universe, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that there is no other... I don't think there's any other, not just intelligent civilizations, I don't think there's any life at all in the observable universe, apart from here. That's
very depressing.
It is super depressing. Yeah, I'm not happy about this conclusion that I've come to, right? And I'm not the only one. It's funny, when I talk to people about it, when I get, a lot of people who, most people would know their names, I've had this conversation with them, sometimes offline, and, they share my feeling about this. So,
see, one of the major concepts in astronomy that you have to start from in everything is we are not in a unique place. We are not in a unique time, and averaged over a sufficiently large chunk of universe, everything is the same.
Yes.
And we would have to live in a special place and a special time if we're the only life in the observable universe.
And that's just what the person who won the biggest possible lottery would say. Like, somebody has to win the lottery, right? And that person's like,
true.
What were the chances? Everyone should be winning the lottery. Could have just been me. For me, it's the... But I'll sort of explain why I am also a gigantic... Like, I would throw 10 times the funding at SETI than than we do now. I would make it a moonshot if I could. I find the Fermi paradox just so unsettling. Just this idea that it's not about like we've only just scarcely looked in the Milky Way. It's about the fact that any civilization would create von Neumann probes, to create bobs and send them out world to world, self-replicating until there were alien artifacts in every star system in the Milky Way. And we talked about this idea of them creating Dyson swarms and creating entire galactic-sized Dyson swarms, and yet we see no evidence. And so either there's nobody out there that's gotten around to colonizing or even just scanning the entire Milky Way, or it means that we'll never do it. That it'll never be possible. For there's some reason why we'll never be able to build bobs, the Bobiverse bobs, and send them out to other star systems.
And I take a less depressing view, which is rare for the two of us, of creating initial life, tiny stuff.
Yeah.
Super common. But life has a way of killing itself. And so I don't think advanced life is common or long lasting. And as a result of our ability to kill ourselves off in a dramatic and regular way, either it hasn't happened before us, or we're not overlapping in time, or if it's out there, it's on the wrong side of the galaxy and it's the same age as us.
Possibly. Yeah. I mean, maybe we're first, maybe they're the same age, we haven't reached each other. But again, we look out into the universe and we don't see any of these fully colonized galaxies out there. And so where it comes to me is just this idea, like, I think that if you assume, like most people, you ask most people, are we alone in the universe? They assume no, that there've got to be other civilizations. And as soon as you assume that there are other civilizations out there, then it puts less emphasis on our responsibility to take care of the planet that we live on. It says, yeah, in 1 billion years, the sun's going to heat up. It's going to wipe out all life on Earth, and we had our chance, and we blew it. But don't worry, because the aliens are going to make sure there's still life in the universe. And I think the universe is made better with life. Universe with life is better than a universe without life. And if it does turn out that we are the only planet that ever formed life, that ever formed intelligent life, and we sat around and pooped in our streams and killed the diversity of species and global warmed ourselves to death, then we took this incredible opportunity for the universe to have life and we ruined it. And we blew it. And maybe the octopuses will rise up after us, or the dolphins and do it. But we used up all of the easy to access minerals as well. Mm-hmm. We burned $1 billion worth of trees. We accessed all of the iron that's available up on the higher, in the crust. And so
it's the easily accessed minerals and fuels that makes our planet unable to be resettled by advanced life.
Yeah. And so I feel like we should search to find out if we're alone. And if we're not alone, like we do find, then pressure's off. That we don't have to feel like we're the only ones holding the candle of life and holding the candle of intelligent life in the universe. But if we continue to search, and it's been hundreds of years, and the amount that we've searched for has gotten bigger and bigger and bigger, and we still see no evidence of life, then obviously, there still could be life in some corner of the Milky Way, but the evidence is starting to push into the possibility that it's all on us, and that we have to take this world, our environment, our planet, with more responsibility than we've shown so far to date. So I kind of like, I can't wait to be proven wrong. And it's so funny because people always accuse me. They're like, Fraser, you're just not ready for, you're lying to yourself and you're just not ready for the aliens that we know are in our skies. I'm like, I cannot wait to be proven wrong. Please. Like, I would pay all my money if it could buy me rock solid evidence that we're not alone in the universe, because then it would mean that the stakes are lower. Now, humanity might wipe itself out, and we might take a lot of other species with us,
Yeah. Well,
But
we already have.
well, yeah, yeah, absolutely. But so that's my position. But yeah, I'm surprised you didn't know that. Yeah, no, I the Fermi paradox is just so troubling to me that it feels like we're alone.
Well, it's you and I have had a bunch of discussions about how I really hope we don't find intelligent life on a time scale, like not just the pollution, but like we can tell their communications able life
Yeah.
within my lifetime, because the chaos that that will cause to society is not something I want to deal with. And
Oh,
you're down with experiencing that.
yeah, I see, and that's where I think you and I disagree. I think you'd be
Yeah.
like, people will lose their minds, religions will
Yeah.
disappear, it'll be chaos, it's all anyone will ever be talking about. And I think people will be like, whoa, that's crazy for about a week or two, and then they'll go back to doing what they always did. Like
Yeah.
life would be almost exactly the same, except we would know there's intelligent life in the universe.
Yes.
That's my feeling. I don't think we would have a breakdown of society at a genetic at a atomic level. I think you think like we literally are facing, I just went through it. We are
Yeah.
literally facing an existential crisis to planet Earth, and
Yeah, I
people
know.
are
And
not
the
freaking out.
phrase "we'll avoid it like the plague" does not mean what you think it means.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. In multiple ways, like
Yeah.
people, like in terms of COVID, people are like, yeah, but what are you gonna do? Let's get back to mask off. Let's get back to life.
Yeah.
Um,
We're all going
as
to die.
as new variants are rolling, and you got global warming as temperatures are rising, and people have just this incredible ability to just internalize it and just move on, to just get, this is
Yeah.
the new normal. So I
Yeah.
I I feel like I can guarantee you that you will not get this crumbling of society at this discovery. You'll get a hiccup at the most, and then it's back to doing what we did before.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. Unfortunately, we will probably be alive to see some of it. So we're going to
Yes.
find out. And we'll probably still be doing Astronomy Cast from our
Yes.
wherever we are at that point.
All right. Well, we have reached the end of our hour, the end of our season, so it's time to wrap things up. Pamela, thank you as always for another super enjoyable season. This was a ball as always.
Yes.
Thank you to everyone who watches us live on YouTube and on Twitch. It's so great to have you there and in the chat and chatting with us. Thank you to, of course, all the moderators, and a special thanks to Nancy Graziano, as well as all of the production team who work on Astronomy Cast and bring it to you every week. And we will be back with you in September. Thanks, everybody.